So let's go ahead and just jump in and talk about Christmas. I know it's one of the busiest seasons for worship pastors and worship teams. It can get pretty chaotic and a lot of times, stressful, even though it shouldn't be that way. It can get pretty stressful for worship leaders. There's sometimes a lot of pressure, from parents or pastors to do certain things during the Christmas season. But hopefully through our conversation today, you'll be encouraged and ready to take over the Christmas season.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Jared, thanks for being with us today. And I guess starting before that, just kind of playing off of what Wisdom had said with this new single, Arrival. Can you tell us about that and what that process and now that is available currently? Has that released on iTunes yet?
Friday.
Oh, okay.
2 days? 2 days.
Yep.
Cool.
Ready. Yeah. What's interesting about this is I was talking with the label. They were saying, man, we'd love to have a Christmas song. And I'm like, guys, I have this song that I'm super excited about. And I've done it several times live and it kills, and I love it. But it's the fact is that it had already been released on a compilation record, and it was several years back, and I honestly didn't even like the production of it. It kind of got buried, or what I felt kind of got buried on the record and whatnot. But they're like, you know what, we don't because it's already kind of out there, we'd rather not record it and release it. I was like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. So frustrated. So I was going to Nashville. I live in Colorado Springs. I was going to Nashville to write for a few days. This is the end of July. I'm like, okay, well, this trip, we're just going to write Christmas songs. And so set up these writing appointments with some friends and started getting in the room going, man, unpacking all my baggage about why Christmas is so stressful and how sometimes, a lot of times, even as a worship leader and someone involved in ministry, holidays equals dread of like, get me out of here. It's pressurized. It'll take everything you have and then some. And so I'm like, what is it? Let's start with what are the roadblocks that keep us from enjoying this season, from getting the most out of it. Like, Jesus didn't come for me to be high on anxiety meds. You know what I'm saying? Like, that wasn't part of the plan. How did we get here? And so what are these roadblocks? And started unpacking, like, man, this pressure to perform, obligations with families, or maybe traditions to be maintained, and then peeling back the layers of what is it that I'm wanting to celebrate is really the fact that I don't have to go through a priest or a temple or a sacrifice to receive God. Like, that's the gift, right? That's already been initiated. He's the one that initiated it. And I get to respond to his already coming. I don't have to produce it. He already initiated it. I'm just responding to it. So the song became kind of an effort to reach for those thoughts. And I'm excited about it, and just the message that it's meant in my own life.
Now, with that, kind of leading into that of, we talk about the stress and anxiety and things from a a worship pastor, somebody that is working at a church, and you find yourself waking up in the middle of the night with that, oh no, this was supposed to be done. And I guess, what are some things that just along those lines, it can be so easy for us to, I guess we feel like, man, my job during this month of December is to get everybody else in the Christmas spirit, and stressing out and going, what do I do? What are some ways to even get around that?
Oh man. I was going to ask you guys. This was
back to those anxiety meds.
So I think a huge one, and I will say, like, the hardest place to work, or the most amount of work, is inside your own heart and inside your own home. And then once, because when we start dealing with ministry stuff, there's kind of this hidden, or maybe elephant in the room that we're not acknowledging, which is what we kind of come to the table with, our own suitcase. And so I'd say the harder work is in our own hearts and in our own home relationships. And then that kind of leaks out into the way we approach ministry and expectations. But it is, golly, those expectations, like starting in September, of what's going to be expected of me. Who do I need to respond to? Where are they at? I've taken inventory about where are the hot spots, who are the people that are going to ask for more than what was told they could have in the second week of December, and who's going to try to scramble my eggs. You know what I mean? What are the things that are going to kind of try and derail me this year, and how can I stay ahead of those people and enjoy it? And how can I create a community that knows what's going on? So it is starting with like this, it's a management of people's expectations. What are we willing to do well? And then what are we willing not to do? What is this year is not going to be? And people are going to kind of have to settle that. Because it does get triggered. And when we are, we're kind of in the producer category, where we're the one that's kind of shoveling out all the seasonal content to make this community activated. Then we become kind of the linchpins that are run around with our heads craziness. And yeah, it'll drive you nuts.
Well, and I think with the expectations, I think that's one of the key things. And Justin, who is not Justin, Josh, who is in, just mentioned that too, in a comment of the expectations. So we have expectations then in church world of, what do I need to do to, make sure that I'm living up to those. But the expectations at home, I think those are one of the first things that we look at is, man, if I'm spending all of this time and energy pouring into the church, but I'm not paying any attention to the expectations of my family or my home, my marriage, all of these things that go on, those are the priorities that we have to really attend to first before we even start about the church. And I think we get those flipped around. What are some ways that we can attend to those expectations, or at least have those discussions at home?
So I will start off because I feel like we had the worst habits. Okay. My wife and I got married when I was 23. I was on staff at the church. Christmas Eve was on my plate. We would do a big Christmas production, and then I was the kind of the utility cleanup guy that was in charge of Christmas Eve. And so we had 3 kids in 29 months. So
Wow.
a lot of babies, busy, hustle. So our Christmas routine was we would do Christmas Eve service. After the service, and sometimes 2 or 3 of them, then we'd go to my parents and do Christmas. Then we would get up in the morning, go to the airport, and fly to Wisconsin to my wife's family. Car seats and all, always a layover in Minneapolis. And I just remember like rounds and rounds on the layover on the people movers, and you can chase your kids up and down the people movers. So that was like Christmas Day. Then we get there Christmas night and just kind of collapse for 4 or 5 days with family that we haven't seen in months, with a whole nother set of things that we need to bring to the table when right here I'm spent. I'm just totally crashed. And so it took we did that for probably 6 or 7 years straight, every year. And then January, like trying to pick up all the pieces of like, who are we again?
Yeah.
And getting into these, I feel like I could testify of how not to do it. But getting ahead of like, man, what are our family expectations? How much do we have to give, and what's being required of us, and what kind of bargains can we make? And man, I'm telling you, preparedness and communication alleviates so much of these unfulfilled expectations that come into play. I mean, if you're at a new place, going to your pastor, hey, what does your holiday routine look like? Even with your own family, how do I know best how to interact with you? How can I be of service to you and not a hindrance? I don't want to be bugging you in a moment where you're trying to engage with your family. I also don't want to be you bugging me in a time when I'm trying to engage my family. Let's like stay out in front of these things. Now, there are some stuff that you can't control and things you run into, but this communication is so hard because it's so emotional and it runs so deep into our lives that if we put work first, we're going to have an unhealthy home it's going to be recovery for our families when it doesn't need to be recovery, because we have our priorities straight. Going, hey, and you know what's going to happen is once we set boundaries, things are going to go wrong, right?
Yeah.
But it's not about whether things go wrong or right. It's about whether we have unity through the process.
Yeah.
So if my pastor and I are on the same page, even if things fall, we win. Yeah. If things go successfully and smashingly, and we have 100 new families join the church, but there is now this chasm between myself and the pastor, between myself and all the volunteers, that's a lose.
Right.
That's a lose. So it's kind of going, reassessing our success criteria. The success criteria is that we walk together as a team and celebrated the season.
Yeah.
It's not about was giving up or is attendance up. Those are things that are going to come and go, and we can't build, we won't have sustainable growth if we just look at those.
Yeah. That's good.
That's the monster switch, I think, that has to happen.
Yeah. And I think when you start to base your identity or acceptance or lack thereof based on either a Christmas production or event or Christmas Eve service. And if you walk away from that and go, oh, well, it didn't turn out the way I wanted, then you're feeling like trash for the last 3 months that you've been preparing for something. And yes, there are, expectations. I think you hit it with one of the first things of the expectations that we have. But knowing that you are in line, in sync with your pastor, I think is one of the first priorities. Last week, I was talking with our team in a rehearsal, and just told them that my goal is not, I didn't come to this church so I can stress people out for the month of December and then make them wish that they wouldn't have been involved and giving of their time over the Christmas season because now they're so wiped out. And so I think there's a lot of things we have to go back and revisit and look at the philosophy of why we do what we do in churches and make sure that we're not, killing ourselves in the process.
Yeah. But I want to communicate the risk as well, because the stakes kind of get high in the sense that if this year we're just going to kind of settle for a unified Christmas.
Exactly.
We're going to settle for, and we're going to let the people down the street really blow up and impress people.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just going to kind of do something kind of simple and have a good time. That takes a lot. That takes a lot of vulnerability. That takes a lot of security in knowing who you are.
Yeah.
To say no to the contest.
Yeah. And even knowing what those expectations are of your senior pastor so that when you can say no. And go, okay, if, I'm good with this, but is he or she going to be okay with that? And, it does take the constant communication of knowing, what can I do? What can I also make an impact with in the lives of people? We think sometimes it takes bells and whistles and money to impact people with the message of Christ. Right. And sometimes it's just being able to strip it down and say, how can we communicate this message? Can this message that we're portraying or singing or doing on video, all of this thing, can this stand alone without all the bells and whistles? Is it still a solid message? Or, people will only get it if we go ahead and add the pyrotechnics. That's when they're going to, now I got to go to pyrotechnics. It's a good song and all, but man, if we had some pyros on Arrival when we finished the bridge of Arrival, now it's going through the roof.
Cue the heavenlies.
So awesome.
It's a dance.
So where are things with you now leading into this month of December, maybe personally as well as, what you have going on with travel, and you might be coming from, a little bit different position now of what you're doing versus maybe what you're doing, in the past, maybe a year or 2 years. What are things looking like for you now, and where are you at career-wise, all of that?
So this is interesting because I haven't had Christmas responsibilities in 5 years, at least, maybe 6. So because I haven't been on staff at New Life, which is where we still attend and where I grew up and was on staff for a long time. And but this year I'm kind of initiating or partnering with this nonprofit that raises money for a school in South Africa that's for kids with Down syndrome, and we're doing a Christmas show, Christmas concert called the 15th of December, and it's on the 15th of December. So I feel like back in the saddle a little bit again. But on top of that, I'm doing like 3 different weekends at churches around the country. And so, yeah, and easily it's got to stay ahead of it, keep the team involved, and plan well, and not, for me, I have this, like, I would just want to feel the moment and kind of wing it, which is always exciting and then stressful too for everyone.
Exciting for you. Freak everybody else out.
This is where we hate Jed.
You walk in with 5 tambourines, say, guys, I got an idea.
Last night I got to thinking. And so, yeah, just don't need any of that. So it's like planning the whole thing out and then walking it step by step. For me, that just is another, like, I have to be a part of a team. I have to have it, so not the whole conversation isn't happening here. And that's my biggest hurdle, is walking with people every step of the way and not letting the conversation only take place in my head.
Yeah. And I'd love to ask you, Matt, what you guys are looking at as a church, because, you're on staff at a church. I would love to see what you guys are planning.
Actually, we changed things even as of this past week. It's kind of like that, kind of like Jared. Hey guys, I've been thinking, and and honestly, we are in the process. We were looking at doing a short film as a part of our Christmas production. But a lot of the things that we were working on, we were developing kind of some characters and some different things that were dealing with maybe some people who are going through some life-changing circumstances, all of that. And we were hitting a lot of roadblocks and trying to narrow down the story. And so I'm like, I've all of this is based on things that we're going through currently in our family with me and my girls. And so really we stripped back some of the things that we were working on, kind of simplified that, but started looking at how can we tell the story that maybe this Christmas doesn't look the way you thought it would look in your family, and because you can go down the aisle in your church and talk with people, and left and right they're going to be saying, well, this happened in our lives. Boy, now we're going through this relationship issue, or we're going through a financial thing, and it's just not what we had hoped for this year. And so that's what our message is hope is alive. And, one of the questions that was there is, how do you get your creative juices flowing for another Christmas when you feel like you've done all the bells and whistles? And that's true. I think you look at it, for me, this is my, I don't know, it's maybe 23rd, 24th year of doing Christmas production type things.
Wow.
And so you go through that of saying, what do I do? Because I feel like, we did this, we did that. And one of the interesting things is churches, we see it over and over that things go in cycles. And there were the days when people did all the pageants, and some are still doing that. For me, I started looking at the money and time that we invest for 1 or 2 or 3 productions. If we're really honest about it and we're truthful, we'd realize that the return on that investment, you say, man, it's great. People from the community come in. And if that's the vision of your pastor and that's the vision of your church, is to reach out to that community so that they can go back to their churches the next Sunday, that's awesome. But really, for me, I want to impact hearts and lives, and I want to be able to tell that message, weaving in worship with this Christmas season, but make it memorable so that people walk away and they're going home on Christmas Eve after they've been at church and they don't like their family. They don't want to be there. They don't want to, go through all the craziness. What hope can we give them when they wake up on Christmas morning and say, man, is this really all it's about? I want to leave them with something, because we're investing a lot of time, we're investing a lot of money as churches all around the country. Yeah. How can we get the most impact? And it's not always more dollars that we need to throw at the production to make it communicate well. If the heart behind it and the message is strong and we want to change lives, then we can add those things around it. But man, let's not kill ourselves in the process. We didn't sign up for this so that we can burn up, everybody and ruin everybody else's Christmas too. Mm-hmm. We want to enjoy this season. I want to enjoy it. I don't want to get past Christmas this year and go, man, I wish I would have had more time to just sit and reflect, spending time with my daughters, doing all of those things. I want to enjoy this season. And I think as worship pastors, people that are in churches, I think we have that responsibility. I think we need to be focused on what is the meaning of this season. And yes, there are expectations, but man, let's not get it twisted.
Yeah. Amen.
I want to chime in there. I've been just reading this book that's had a big section of it's on Ecclesiastes, and I feel like sometimes, especially when we come around the holidays, we've got these big kind of cultural sacred cows that really get expressed, and I'm just like, what are some I know we got to hit them. We want to create a worshipful experience, but this is also how can we, this is our chance to get kind of nitty gritty with people in their daily lives too. Not only on their spiritual journey, but really bringing some kind of non-religious elements to the party that are fun. This is only one of the few chances that the worship department gets to be funny. Right? Funny is not expected of us on Sunday mornings, right? It just isn't. So I think bringing something that has some brevity and just some funness to it, just makes it, changes the pace a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a huge, and I think people want to be I think worship people will jump at the chance to be involved in something that's funny, because that's not normally us. We're usually the go deep, surrender, chains off. You know what I mean? Passionate, really deep heart kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And to have fun. Oh my Lord. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe to take some of these sacred cows that are the obligations and kind of turn them on their head a little bit and let everyone in on that. I think is a real, with this Christmas production, I'm just going to have to testify a moment. So I had written this song, half of this song, a couple years ago, called The 15th of December. And it's like the 15th of December, 10 days until it all slows down. I'm trying to remember why everybody's talking so loud. People flying through their parking lots, doubled up on their espresso shots. It's crazy. A little hard to explain. Last night I tried to write you a song. Instead I went to iTunes and bought you Elton John. It's crazy. A little hard to explain. Well, this Christmas I won't be at the mall, 'cause all the perfect gifts were discontinued last fall. It's crazy. A little hard to explain. And this year I made up this like, look, it's not so perfect, but it's Christmas. It's not so perfect, but it's Christmas. This is like the whole show is it's like a not so perfect Christmas.
That's
it's kind
awesome.
of engaging in this depressurizing, like let the air out of the ulcer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And just like kind of saying what everyone's thinking. It's like let's bring the inflammation down a little bit because if we're feeling the pressure, we communicate that to other people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the more that our services get on a time clock, the more other people feel like they got to live on a time clock. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think, man, that's what people get all week. That's what they get at their jobs. Like the UPS drivers are now getting feedback about how much their trucks spend in the reverse gear. Like they are told, we want you to lower the amount of time you spend driving your truck in reverse.
Wow. Jeez.
Like they are monitoring the garbage out of this thing,
crazy.
right? Everything is so monitored and noticed and quantified and crunched and analyzed. Like, man, if they're feeling that at work, I don't want to give them that on Sunday morning. What they're trying to be released from.
Yeah.
So, anyways.
Yeah. That's
awesome.
That's good. I want to get to a question that somebody submitted here. Matt says, New Life had a hefty production on Christmas. I remember because I was a student there. I wonder, could you give practical planning process of how something that awesome comes together?
Oh my gosh.
Do you have like a book you wrote on that you can send them?
It's called Recovery. No, I mean, they really, I think a lot of it started in the youth group where you're like, all right, what can we do this Christmas? It's fun. It's funny. And people that are gifted on this little creative team start throwing out. And really, we would try and throw every cultural reference. I think we opened up one year with the guy in a Beauty and the Beast costume as the candlestick.
Yeah.
I forget, singing Be Our Guest or something. Like, it was like you could take anything and tie it to Christmas. And so it was really like, 4 or 5 writers like hustling through what can we do, what can we pull off, and deadlines, and each year everyone kind of brace for it, and you'd be surprised at how something can come together. But it's the same thing of like, whatever you build it on, you got to maintain it on. And so every year you're kind of trying to outdo yourself. And then we got to where we take breaks. We're not going to do a Christmas show this year. And now I don't think New Life's doing a Christmas show at all. this season they'll do a Christmas Eve service.
Yeah.
So I mean, you go through seasons, and that's kind of the nature of the beast, and it's a cultural self-awareness that goes, okay, we can handle this year, and this helps us, and then we can all be on board, and this will be a great thing. Or man, we're just not here, and we need to take a back seat and let the people down the street blow it up, and
Yeah.
pick your battles.
Good. And then Kristen asks, so what kinds of songs should we be doing on Sunday mornings during the Christmas season?
Oh, I think it's a stretch for worship leaders to do the carols, because we want them to feel like how great is our God, and they just don't. You know what I mean? Like, but then I think it's a really good task for us to take these old songs and kind of let them be what they are, and navigate, and everyone navigate, okay, the song's done now, and we're not going to have an open worship moment after, We Three Kings. And that's okay. It doesn't need to be. It's a cool song. It's part of our heritage. We did it. It was kind of a chance to do something musically that we don't normally do. And there it was,
Yeah.
We went for it. But I do think here's what I think, we get a little bit scared to try things that weren't on a Hillsong record. You know what I mean? We look at other people to kind of take the risks when it's wide open. Like it's so wide open for us to try stuff, and people want us to try things. They trust us to try things, even if they don't work, just to try things. And December is like a perfect time to, give the handbell choir a shot.
Woo! Right on.
Yeah, it's fun.
And, I think really there's no right or wrong way to approach the Christmas season. It's really up to the church and the church leadership on what songs should they do Christmas carols, should they not. Like, it's not in the Bible, so it's kind of like one of those things where
it's like you got to do at least one carol a weekend after Thanksgiving, and I think that's pretty fair. Like, I think if you're not acknowledging the Christmas season with a Christmas song in the month of December, I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, you're like, dude. But then I don't know. I don't like celebrating Christmas after Halloween. That's just too early for me. But that's a personal deal.
Matt, do you have any input on that?
Well, and I think adding something in December, typically I'll add something if it's a song to start off with, to come out of the chute on a Sunday morning, just to add something that, come on, let's be honest too. That helps as far as your planning. You can plan something out and know ahead of time, hey, there's a couple things that either work, or maybe you want to try something new and say, hey, this might be different, but we want to try this version that we came up with on Hark the Herald Angels, that you can do. You'll get a lot of mileage out of it. People will enjoy it, but then you also, build your worship service, around that. So it's not the only thing. That's right. Usually what I do. I'll have something in there, or think in terms of, if I'm doing this, is there an area that I can kind of go off and have, we can have this worship moment out of this song. So rather than looking at it as a challenge, or something we dread, hey, how can I make this work for us in this season?
Yeah. I think I really like the idea, Jared, that you had actually just doing Christmas on the Halloween weekend. Just do all Christmas songs.
And then give out candy Christmas weekend.
There you go. So
Free. Merry Christmas.
I want to thank everybody that's been asking questions and engaging on here.